All right, so if you have your Bibles, turn to Esther. I'm not going to start right away in Esther, but get ready because I'm going to be in Esther today. So, and if all you men are looking at me going, oh, you're talking about Esther, you're only talking to the women today, don't run out of here because I'm talking to you too. And I may have a Father's Day message on Mordecai. Just saying. Mordecai is an amazing man in here, and he did amazing things, and I'm not going to share all of them with you. But anyway, I want to talk about Esther today. Esther was a woman of God, and I can relate to her in my life. And originally, I just wanted to share my testimony with you, and that was all I was going to do. And then God was like, no, I have a message. I'm like, okay. But a lot of my testimony, a big part of my testimony, I can relate to Esther, and I learned a lot from Esther. And it just wasn't, I learned a lot of lessons. Let's just put it that way. So I just want to start by giving my testimony. I grew up in a church. I loved going to church. I loved going to Sunday school. I even went to a Christian school very young. I got the Best Dresser award. Yeah, so I loved being around believers. I loved all of that. And my parents got divorced when I was 4. And I lived with my mom. And she was a single mom. And she raised us for many, many years. And she was a single mom, so I was brought up in a single home. And she emphasized the importance of God. She emphasized the importance of church. She was my real-life example of a Proverbs 31 woman. She worked hard. She woke up early to study. She never missed church services. She took really good care of us. And she worked many, many hours. Many hours. So I just want to say thank you. I honor you, and I thank you for who I am today because of you. And she reminds me a lot of Mordecai, right? Because Esther was an orphan, and Esther, she was amazing. She lost her parents, and in this, I'm pretty sure that Mordecai was her cousin. A lot of people say it was her uncle. Pretty sure it was her cousin. But so he raised her. And he took her in, and it was amazing. So I'm going to share about that. So at the early age of 11, I answered a call in front of my church to follow Jesus. I ran down to the front. I was so excited. I nudged my mom. I was like, hey, Mom, I want to go. And she goes, sit down. We're not going home yet. I'm like, no, I want to go up there. I said, I want to go. I want to follow Jesus. And she was like, oh, my gosh, okay. I went to youth group. I went to youth camp. In camp, it was the first time I actually heard the Lord's voice. They taught us to sit still before the Lord. And so I went to youth camp. At 17, they were training us to be youth leaders. We were so excited. I was like, this is great. So Donnie always says, Jen has the best testimony. She grew up in church. Everything's perfect, right? So it wasn't always perfect because I had struggles. And one of the things that I struggled with, I had a problem, and I had a problem with being alone. I had a problem. My dad wasn't in the picture for years. He was a workaholic, and I didn't see him a lot. I saw him every other weekend. I was like that kid who was 15, and I said, Dad, we need to sit down. I wasn't afraid to tell him how I felt. Ask Donnie, I'm not afraid to tell him how I feel. I'm like, sit down, we need to have a sit down. And I was like, I'm not coming to see you anymore. And he was like, what? I said, no, I'm not coming to see you anymore. I have things to do, I'm busy. You're never there when I come, so I'm not coming. And he was like, oh, okay. I said, well, you can date me. Come on, take me on. I really fought for that relationship with him. And he respected that. He listened and apologized. And he was great as far as that. We didn't have a relationship until years later. But I struggled. I struggled with rejection. I struggled with, I just wanted him in my life. And I didn't know why. He wasn't there. And I struggled with that. And in that, I had a hard time waiting on the Lord. And I just struggled with waiting. I couldn't wait. Everything I did, I wanted it now. I wanted a boyfriend and I wanted it now. I wanted this and I wanted it now. Like a lot of generation today, right? It's our society. We want it now. It's like the microwave, pop it in the oven, I need it now. So, how do we get over that? I'm going to share with you how. My dad, you know, through the years, we grew closer. So, I'm just going to share this. This is the part Donnie was like, I don't think I could stay here for this, but he's going to stay. When I was 19, I struggled with waiting on the Lord. I had a hard time. Even though I was going to church, I was trying to do the right things, I was up and down a lot. And one of the things, I got into a relationship at 19, and he turned to be abusive very, very quickly. He was extremely controlling and manipulative. He took advantage of me, and he was violent. And it happened fast. I mean, really fast. And I kind of was, yeah, I'm not using your tablet. I will in a minute when I read the scripture. So it was bad. I mean, the one fight that we got into, I wanted to spend the day with my mom, and he got mad, and we got into a fight. He literally threw me over his head backwards, and I hit my ceiling, because I was in the top part, and I fractured my foot. I ended up in the hospital, and he was like, we have to tell someone a story because nobody can know this. So we told everybody that I fell down the steps. I don't know how many people believed me for a while, but that was kind of my wake-up call. I don't know if you ever had a wake-up call. I was like, this is not right, you know? You're kind of just going through. And I don't share this story a lot because it was a hard time. It was a really hard time. It was a very scary time for me. And even though it wasn't that long of a time, it was a scary time for me. It took me a long time to get out. I mean, I kept breaking up, and he kept stalking me, and I had to get a restraining order. A lot of things happened in that. My dad he was a police officer. So I ended up telling him, and then he got a private investigator, and he had my phones tapped and everything else. I got the courage through my family to really break things off and to leave. But in the middle of all of that, I was still trying to seek the Lord. See, this guy's family was leaders in the church. And so I didn't feel like I could run to the church. I didn't feel like that. So it actually was good in the sense, because it really pushed me to my knees even more. Really pushed me to my knees. And say, God, why, I did all these things right. And I got into this, why? And I got angry with God, and then I was okay, and I went back. How many of you get angry with God once in a while? Because you're like, I'm doing all the right things. But sometimes we're not. We miss some of the little things that we need to be doing and falling on our face, and I'm going to share with you in a minute. But I was still impatient. Even after that, I was still impatient. I still wanted, a daddy figure in my life. I wanted him there all the time. I wanted him to want me. And so, I had another boyfriend, and then I got married real quick, and that was to Mariah's dad, and then we got divorced. So I was still kind of so impatient. I was like, I just didn't want to sit still. And of course, then I met my husband, and it's been a fairy tale since. That's what he told me to say. That's what he told me to say. It's written right here and changed my notes. We have our struggles. Maybe I'll share that with you another time. I'm not going to share that. I love him dearly, and he is a huge support for me, so thank you. But I was always in a rush. I was in a rush. I had a hard time waiting. I didn't look to the Lord for all my decisions. I just kind of was like, no, this is the right thing to do, and I just kind of went. I prayed, but I prayed in the morning, hey, God, what's going on? And I just kind of went. I kind of went along, and I didn't wait on the Lord. I didn't wait for him. And so I want to share with you, and ask you guys, what are you guys having a hard time waiting on? What are struggles that you're sitting there I need this. This has to happen now, And Personally, like, what are you struggling with? As a church, what do we struggle with? We can't wait for a building. That's me. Sorry, another thing I have to learn. We can't wait for a building. We can't wait to get on the property. We can't wait till the water tests every week come back. I mean, we have all these things and we're like, Lord, why? What is going on? Why? So in the story of Esther, I want to share with you some amazing things, how she waited on the Lord, how she waited. And if you have a notebook and you have a pencil and you want to take notes, great. If you don't, you will not offend me. Just saying. But I like to take notes and little things here. So I want to turn to Esther. If you're in 1, that's okay. I'm going to kind of summarize because Donnie told me I can't read all of Esther. He told me to cut it back. So I'm going to cut it back and I'm going to give you a short summary. How many of you know the story of Esther? How many of you know the story of Esther? How many of you know it how many of you know it from watching a movie of Esther? Okay? And how many of you know it from both the Bible and, okay, I'm just trying to get an idea because I don't want to give you all this information and you're like, I already know that. Shut up. I want to go get my Mother's Day lunch, you know? So I just want to see where you know. So I'm going to summarize Queen Esther for you from chapters 1 to 3. I'm going to read a little bit of 4 and 5. Look, he was so funny last night. He took my notes and he was like, wow, that's really long. But he didn't correct me. I'm just going to tell you that. He told me I did a great job, and he just said I had to take out a little bit, and then he puts it in some format that I had to rearrange. I'm like, okay. But I'm still doing my own thing, sorry. Okay, so a summary of Esther. Queen Esther was a great example of waiting on the Lord. And if you wanted a title for this message, I guess you could call it Waiting or Not to Wait. That's the question, right? Wait or not to wait. Waiting on the Lord. And she was a great example of trusting God. She was a woman of strength. And she was regarded with all her people. She was one of the greatest Jewish women in all of history. Okay, so we can learn a lot from her. And the crazy thing, did you guys know? The crazy thing about Esther is it's just a story. There's actually no talk of God. There's no mention of God in Esther. There's no mention of prayer. It says fasting, but when you interpret that, fasting back then was fasting with prayer. There was no just fasting because, I need to fast and lose weight, or I need to fast. No, fasting was fasting in prayer. But it's amazing to me because through her actions and through studying of the Jewish culture, you knew she was a woman of God. They didn't have to say it. They didn't have to say a lot of things. You knew by her actions. You knew that God was with her in these times. So, chapter 1. Ready? I'm going to be like that woman up there real quick. Let me go through this real quick. So, chapter 1, Esther was an orphan. Okay? She was raised by a single parent like me. I wasn't an orphan, but she was raised by a single parent, and that was Mordecai. King Xerxes. Oh my gosh. Xerxes. I'm sorry. Xerxes. Woo. Sorry about that. Ruled, and Vashti was banished. He was married to Queen Vashti, and she disobeyed him. She was arrogant, and she was mad at him. And who knows, but she disobeyed him, and he was angry, and he's like, you're not going to do this in front of all my kingdom. You're out of here, right? So she's out. Now he's alone. And about 3.5 years go by, and he says, I need a queen. It doesn't say that in the story that you watch on TV. It goes like right into it, right? So he needs a queen, and so he says, okay, get all the people from Persia and all the pretty single, women, and let's bring them on and have a parade. They were going to do a parade, like a pageant. Like, come on. They had to prepare for 6 months. Imagine 6 months in bathing in oils and just preparing themselves. So Esther was chosen. She was beautiful, and she was really favored. So she goes, and in the middle of this, in chapter 22, there was a plot to kill the king, and Mordecai, he had saved him, and I'm going to tell you why that's important later. But Haman hated Mordecai, and Haman, he was one of the officials for King Xerxes. And so, not knowing that Esther was Jewish, see, she was Jewish, and she didn't tell anybody. So here, she didn't tell anybody. Even throughout when she became queen, she didn't tell anybody. Mordecai said, do not tell anyone. So, throughout all this time, Haman hated Mordecai. And anyway, Esther became queen. She was highly favored. She was beautiful. He saw her one time and he said, that's her, let's go. Right? He didn't even fool around. Let's go. She's going to be my wife and she's going to be queen, and that was it. But nobody knew she was Jewish. Nobody knew. So Mordecai, being the cousin and relative and father figure he would come by every day and just, I can just imagine him coming by and praying. Like just walking by and praying for her, right? And so that was neat to me. He walked by every day. So seems like though, so Haman hated Mordecai because he wouldn't bow down to him. So this is all in short. You guys all need to go back and read this, right? It's so good. So let's turn to chapter 4. And in all of this, at this point, even in the beginning of chapter 4, it looks like God is absent. It looks like he's nowhere to be found because, honestly, there was a lot going on. And what happened was Haman was so angry. I feel like if I put this on here, I'm going to leave it back here. I'll just read from, I'll obey my husband here, submit and read from his tablet. But it seemed like, God was absent. And a lot of times in our lives, doesn't it feel like God's just like nowhere to be found and like, what is going on? Why? I have no answers here. Nothing's happening. And it really seemed like he was absent because Haman went out and he hated Mordecai. And he didn't just hate Mordecai to the point where he wanted to kill Mordecai. He hated Mordecai to the point where he wanted to kill all of his people. He knew he was Jewish and he wanted to kill all of his people. So he went to the king and said, King, I'm your official, I'm your right-hand man, give me this and let me do this. He won't bow to me. He's disrespectful to you. And the king was like, yeah, he is. He's just, go ahead, do what you want with him, Haman. So he went out and wrote a decree. It said, they're going to, on this day, blah, 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 they're going to kill all the Jewish people. And so they were going to have a genocide, and it was bad. So let's read Esther 4:12. And so right in the beginning of Esther 4, that's where I was going here. Mordecai was outside the gate, and he was not happy. He had he was in distress. He had his clothes torn, and he was fasting and praying with his people because they found out they were all going to be killed. And Esther was compassionate. She went to him and said, here's some clothes. He's like, I don't want your clothes. So he goes back, and the guy comes and brings the clothes back up to him, and to Esther, and goes, Esther's like, what's wrong with him? Why is he such in distress? And then he goes back, and the servant comes, and he can't come into the gates because he has his ripped sackcloth and everything. So he comes in, and the servant says, all your people are going to be killed. So verse 12, Esther's response was reported to Mordecai. Mordecai told the messenger to reply to Esther. So she goes back and tells Mordecai, right in verse 10 and 11, if I go before the king, he's going to kill me. He's going to kill me. Because there's a law that you can't go before the king. And if he lays out his gold scepter, then you'll be okay. But you're not allowed to go. And at this point, it's been 30 days since she saw her husband, since she saw the king. It says it right there in verse 11. 30 days. Imagine, like you have to wait till he calls you. That's it. That's how it was. There was no other way. So he says, yeah, if I go before the king, she's like, I'm going to die. I can't go. I can't break. She's like, I can't break the law. I'm submissive to my husband. I'm not doing this, right? So, verse 12, Esther's response reported to Mordecai. Mordecai told the messenger to reply to Esther, don't think that you will escape the fate of all the Jews because you are in the king's palace. If you keep silent at this time, relief and deliverance will come to the Jewish people from another place. But you and your father's family will be destroyed. Who knows, perhaps you have come to a royal position for such a time as this. Esther sent this reply to Mordecai. Go and assemble all the Jews who can be found in Susha and fast for me. Don't eat or drink for 3 days, night or day. And I, my female servants, will also fast in the same way. After that, I will go to the king, even if it's against the law. If I perish, I perish. So Mordecai went and did everything Esther had commanded him. So that's pretty much the story of Esther there, and she goes off and they pray and they fast and pray. And you guys can read the story. She goes to him. They fast and they pray. They all go together. She goes to him and she says, if it pleases you, this. And he hands out the gold scepter. So he says, this is what amazes me. Okay, you're in distress. Your whole family's going to be killed. And what does the king says, whatever. He loved her so much. He's like, whatever you want in half the kingdom, I'll give it all to you. I'll give it all to you. And she says, oh, I just want you to come to my banquet tomorrow night. So, and you and Haman, and she invites her enemy to the table. And so it happens again, and then they go again. And then what happens? Again. Oh, if you come to my banquet the next night. Wow, that's patience, right? Because I don't know if I'd be that patient, but anyway, so Haman had to honor Mordecai that night. So all of these things happen, and I just want to share, like, if she didn't obey the Lord and what she was supposed to do, that very night, okay, that very night that he said one more time, she said, come to my banquet the next night. That very, very night is when all of a sudden the king couldn't sleep. The king couldn't sleep. And so they said, what, can you read the Chronicles to me? And they journaled, so you guys take a little hint with that. You should journal, right? He journaled and go, tell me what happened before. And then, oh, Mordecai, he saved my life way back then in chapter 1. He saved my life. So, yeah, we need to honor him. And then Haman walks in and goes, who do we honor for someone who's, and he thinks it's going to be him. And what does the king say? No, Haman, you need to go honor Mordecai. And he had to take him out, his enemy, and parade him through the town, right? I mean, this is an amazing story. What happens if Esther, the first day, whatever you want, half the kingdom is yours, my darling, take it, right? What does she say? Yes, that's it. This is whatever I want it right now. I want Haman dead, right? As women, and sometimes you get so emotional, and you're like, I just want him dead. No. I mean, this is what happened, right? I just want him dead. But she didn't do that. She had such grace, and she had such self-control. So Haman had to honor him and do that. And then, of course, you know the story. It's amazing to me. Do you know that it's like in the story, in the movies, it's like, oh yeah, and then he changed his words. No, his words weren't changed. I'm going to tell you why. She ordered a new decree to combat what they said. So I'm going to share with you that in a minute. So the people, she saved all her people. She sacrificed. She was going to sacrifice herself to go into him, into there, and that. So I wanted to share this. Esther was bold. She had many times of waiting. Many times of waiting. Esther had compassion. So in the middle of waiting, like, what do you do? You just sit there? Okay, God, I'm just going to wait. I'm going to wait. Right? I'm going to wait for a man. I'm going to wait. I'm 40-something. Right? That's what we do. We're like, okay, I guess it's not, poor me, right? But But no, she didn't do that. She had compassion. She had compassion for her people. She was so distressed over Mordecai that he was distressed. What did she do? She had her servant run down there to him and give him clothes, right? She's like, I gotta go help him. I gotta go help him. Do we do that as people? Do we run after people who really are in distress and hurting? Do we run after that? Or do we go, oh, yeah, I don't really know about that. I'm just gonna. She had everything. She was like, had the fame, the fortune, servants. She had everything. She didn't need to have anyone run down there. She could have closed her curtains and said, I don't know what's going on. I don't care, right? But she had compassion for her people. She submitted to authority. So she first, her earthly father, who taught her really well, and then to her husband. She told Mordecai, I can't do that. This is the law. I can't do that. I can't break the law, and I'm going to submit to my husband. And so that to me was powerful. So in verse 2:20, that's where she listened to Mordecai's instruction. You know, she was out of the house. She was long gone. She didn't have to listen. How many of you are like, I'm not a child anymore. I'm listening to my parents, right? But no, it's good. They have good advice for you. They're listening to the Lord. They want to help you, okay? So no, we don't have to listen, but we have to honor them, right? We have to honor our parents. And she honored them, and she listened to his instruction. And that was really, really stuck out to me. She also never told anyone. She was Jewish, which I told you. And she kept that secret. The only reason she kept that secret is because Mordecai said, don't tell anyone you're Jewish. For all those years. It had to be, it looks like 7 years. She kept that secret. You know, for what reason? Did she even know? Do we know what the Lord has for us? Are we, do we really trust him that he has our back, that he knows what our best interest is? I mean, that's tough. And Esther stayed calm. She kept her emotions under control. She had self-control. Proverbs 16:32 says, better to be patient than powerful. Better to have self-control than to conquer a whole city. Do we have self-control? Because it doesn't talk about this, but when we went to Israel, the Jewish custom, they are amazing. They come to that wall every day for hours seeking the Lord. And what do we do in America? We're like, oh, if I have time, I'll sit and read, right? And then even when we do make it a point to make time and have our quiet time, it's so funny because I sometimes hear people saying, oh, well, that's religious. Get up every day. My mom was religious about reading her Bible at 5 a.m. every morning. She was religious about it, right? Some people can say, well, that's just religion. That's not a relationship. Well, sometimes I bet that she didn't feel like doing that. I bet that some days she didn't get goosebumps and feel like God was speaking to her, but she still did it every day. Because what does God say? Hide your word in my heart that I might not sin against you. So you do it. You have to do it. Even if it feels like it's ritualistic and religious, you have to hide God's word in your heart. Okay? And that's what she did. That's what they did. And I'm telling you, Donnie will tell you all the time, when we went to, and everybody who went to Israel, it was amazing to me. I thought, wow. Right, Paul? Right? It was like, we don't do anything for the Lord compared to these people, right? And we felt bad for them because they didn't have a relationship with the Lord that we had. We have so much freedom in the Lord, and I feel like sometimes we just take that for granted. But you know what? She could have went crazy. She could have went berserk on Haman, couldn't she? That first day when she heard and Mordecai's out there, she could have ran out of that royal room, slammed the door, and like, who do you think you are? That is my relative. You're not doing that, right? She could have thought, I have this power. I am queen, because that's what Vashti thought, and she got kicked out, right? But no, she had wisdom, and she had self-control, and she didn't go off on her emotions. How many times, come on guys, let's get real. There's things and people and family who hurt us, and what do we want to do? pick up that phone. What is wrong with you? Why did you do that? Especially when you come out, when you hurt our kids. Ooh, Mama Bear comes out, right? It's like, don't hurt my kids, don't hurt my kids. So yeah, this was like for real. So, she also gathered the people. Isn't it amazing? She didn't just go and pray. Do you realize all these people were already fasting and praying? And then Mordecai goes back, let's gather together. It's like, me, okay, come on. All you guys need to fast and pray for me for 3 days. Go. No drink, no. I mean, would you do, like, that's a lot. That's a big thing. And nobody hesitated, they just did it. It was their fasting and praying was part of their life. So they just did it. They were already fasting and praying because they were fasting and praying for themselves. And then they said, pray for me. This is what I'm going to do. So they fasted and prayed for her. That's discipline. That's discipline. She had discipline. So I'm going to wrap this up. But I just want to say that Esther was patient. She was patient. She waited a long time. She waited a long time to become queen. She waited as queen for a long time. I mean, I wonder if she even knew what her purpose was. How many of you guys know what your purpose is? How many of you really know, what's my purpose here? What am I doing? God, what am I just going to work every day? Like, what am I doing here, right? Are we preparing ourselves? Are we patient? Are we waiting well? Are we waiting well for the Lord when we get that for such a time as this? For such a time as this. And that's what I want to challenge you guys with. It amazes me. It amazed me how God's timing was in this. God's timing was so perfect. If she didn't say, let's have a banquet, and then let's have another banquet. She didn't see her husband for 30 days, and now she wants to see him 3 days in a row, right? Let's have a banquet, let's have a banquet. But how many times do we get done fasting and praying, we're like, well, nothing happened. I guess we'll just go back, right? We do that. We don't wait and trust in the Lord. And I want to just tell you guys, delay does not equal failure. You have to wait on God's timing. He had this all planned out. He had this entire thing planned out, and he needed just to wait. Wait. She needed to wait. Mordecai and her together, they had to wait on the Lord. She was, and it blows my mind because I relate to Esther because guess what? She was brought up in a single family home. She was brought up in that home, and it couldn't be easy for her. And then all of a sudden she was taken off the streets and whipped right into the palace. Not to see her family and friends again. It had to be lonely. That had to be hard. And I just have to say, I found it really cool that her servants even fasted and prayed with her. Her servants. So what was happening all that time while she was there? She was probably praying with them, telling them about the Lord. I mean, she was probably, it sounded like she had such a great relationship. Just the fact that they're gonna pray and fast with her, right? But everyone fasted. They needed each other. We need each other, guys. We can't just continue to live our lives alone and separate. Yeah. We need each other. And she wasn't afraid. She was a good leader. She got up and she was like, I need you, and y'all need to fast and pray. That's it. She didn't make excuses. She didn't say, anything. But she was a good leader. And she really stood up and did what was right. And she had courage. She had courage to go in front of the king. She had courage to say, this isn't right. Right? She spoke the truth in love. And she had patience to do it. Guys, we need to be speaking the truth in love to our family. We can't just let everything just go, right? She fought. She fought for the ones who couldn't speak. She fought for those who couldn't speak. Are we fighting for those? Are we fighting for our children? We have to discipline our children. Let me tell you something. It's hard. There's times I disciplined them, walked in the room and cried. You know what? But I knew it was the right thing to do because it was the truth and it was in love. And I don't regret it. Those things are hard to do. We have to stick with the things and we have to wait patiently, and we have to do those things that are hard. And the last thing is, she honored her king. If you want to write this down, she honored her king in his words. Do you honor your husband's words? Do you honor your own words? Men, do you honor your word? What you speak, it is not just words. Do you honor them? Do you stick with it? She didn't remove the ordinance against the Jewish people. She didn't do that. You know what she did? She wrote her own to combat it. So that day that all of the Jews were going to be killed, she wrote and said, I don't even know if this is in some of the stories, but she wrote, no, the Jewish people can fight back and will fight back. And guess what? You know how, and it did say they fought. So they wanted those Jewish people dead. They wanted them dead. And so what did they do? The Jewish people fought back and they won. And she saved her people. She saved her people because she waited patiently. She wasn't in a rush for anything. I've learned walking with the Lord that being anxious about God's timing really means I don't trust him. And that's hard because you think you're doing such a good thing. I'm walking, I'm going. And there's consequences to not trusting him. There's consequences to not waiting. Hence my life. And not all of my life, because my life is great. I had a great childhood. I don't mean anything, bad at all, but what I'm saying is there was pieces in my life that were broken and taken from me. Why? Because I didn't wait on the Lord. So, worship team, you could come up. I've learned a lot about the life of Esther. We can't go rushing around, doing our own thing, not asking the Lord for direction. We can't. Okay? I want to ask you today, are you waiting well? Are you serving in the middle of waiting? Are you fasting and praying? Are you gathering with people? Are you asking those people for help? There's no sense of gathering if we don't ask for help. Donnie says I don't have a problem with that. I have no problem asking. Come on, we need help. Do you have self-control like Esther did? Are you disciplined? Do you seek him daily? Do you keep your word? What you say out of your mouth, do you mean it? And are you keeping your words? I challenge you guys today. Ask the Lord, Lord, if there's anything I said that I didn't keep, show me and let me correct it. Because you might not be able to go back and totally fix what you didn't keep, but you can apologize to that person. Right? And there's things that we do. If you said you're going to go and, I don't even know, give someone dinner, you better go do it. I don't care if it's 5 years late. Okay, if you said you're going to go paint that person's room and they already sold the house and it's done, you better go apologize and say, do you have another room I can paint? Okay, because that's our word is our character. And we need to stick to that. We need to wait patiently. I love Esther 4:14. If you keep silent at this time, relief and deliverance will come to the Jewish people from another place. From another place. Do you want the Lord to use someone else? Because he will. He'll use someone else. But he has a plan and a purpose for your life. Who knows? Perhaps you have come to your royal position for such a time as this. Have you had your such a time as this moment yet? Or are you still waiting for it? If not, I just encourage you to be patient. As you're waiting, do all these things. Seek the Lord. Let him show you what you need to do on a daily basis. Don't feel like it's ritualistic and religion. This is religion. I'm just reading words. If you don't understand the Bible, then get a devotional. Get a partner to help you. Okay? And dig in. Ask the Lord, help me to understand this. He will. He's going to show you. God has a plan and a purpose. for each one of us. And we're all here in this church for such a time as this.